51. The Warfare State, published by Fred J. Cook in 1962, was a political and military history of America's sudden conversion from mighty World War II defeat of Nazi and Japanese empires to weaponeer corruption of our government that cemented in planet-wide conventional war and the nuclear arms race, essentially rolling World War III. He decried the 15 years of world militarism with his book. I describe its following 250 war, 62-year Murder Incorporated domination in mine. He critiqued the savage degeneration without offering the reform, new law, and citizen activism that I demand. After the 77-year World War selling and dictatorship, we know that the arms business and its seized governments will forever and a day, doomsday, stay locked in on their giant commercial military killing. Only you and I could stop them and save us all with old and new laws designed as the exact, lawful, human care, not destruction, opposite of the player's laissez-faire, lawless takeover. Many dozens of other authors and 1,000 war and other human savaging by corrupted governments news stories influenced me. But first, Fred Cook's meticulous and emotional journalism made me aghast. His own anger, distress, and condemnation of corrupt liars selling murder for money blazed through his every word, committing me to work on the saving answers that Mr. Cook was poised to, but failed to voice. In the 1960s, anti-nuclear activist Bertrand Russell rallied tens of millions to force Kennedy and Khrushchev to cease hundreds of nuclear test blasts that were filling all human bodies, including mother's milk, with a deadly byproduct, radioactive strontium-90. Naturally, the nuclear arms race players just moved every megaton boom underground, while bomb deployment and spread unabated drives humanity ever closer to doomsday. The 5,000 Scientist Club of Rome predicted our 70 to 90 years to overpopulation, environmental, and nuclear holocausts, but also proposed not one political, industrial, and or legal world program to save us. Today, figurative seconds from total extinction, or worse, allowance of a few miserable survivors. Opposing rescue law is still nowhere. Why? Someone's not helping. The passive victim. You. Point of my every speech. Before publishers reject me as a bad scholar, realize that political, military, and other crisis historians favor narrow topic exploration from 200 researcher regurgitation that hopes to reverse not 1% of human mass doom. Besides my large nuclear arms race library, I ranged over the many dozens of fields and arenas explored by thousands of world crisis radio journalists on site. In-depth reports that I should be shot for not writing down in a 100-page bibliography. I just jumped up from thousands of sleepless nights to tell you every human horror story that nobody except you will ever end with new enforced law. Academic treatises rarely inspired anyone. I describe the problems and solutions and point out that corrupted leaders will ever attack and never help us, so our only hope is your takeover. With Foundation help, my book could be revised and improved with lots of research vetting. Right now, my hard fact to weakly founded assumption ratio is very high, in my opinion. My beef with the pros is that not a single specialist explores our entire dying world. For example, historians virtually never suggest how to change the disastrous history they so accurately recount, begging the question, what did they or will any reader learn from it besides bad boys' horrors? Publish them, but not me? What are you thinking? International law experts detail the minutiae of toothless war conduct conventions that all know will never prevent 1 of 10,000 war crime deaths, but can't be bothered to advocate for actually enforced peace law, including international treaties and organizations advanced by citizens to fully work in their interests, instead of designed to fail by superpowers intending only total war for profit until doomsday. Opposite of our total peace for permanent survival and love, being the entire purpose of written international law that the no enforcement fraudsters sold us, right? And why is it so frickin' unheard of to just connect the billion murdered and multiples ruined to war's obvious legal, physical disarmament halt imperative, hardly more complex than the exact reversal of the thieving financial conspiracies cleverly driving taxpayers' fear, bigotry, and hatred to start and sustain most wars? Environmental destruction likewise has commerce enlisting government to increase pollution for profit instead of quickly stopping and removing it for our only survival. Arnold Toynbee described 14 straight empires' world rape and slaughter until inviting self-destruction. The American empire's doom you hear from me. Decades of war savaging other races and religions around the world has spawned terrorists in exactly 100 nations unable to defeat the American armies, so now intent on exploding the biggest bombs they can find in our civilian cities, including D.C. and New York government and economy centers. Wouldn't you think our 2,000-pound bomb murder of 40,000 Palestinians sealed that deal by inflaming 2 billion Muslims every new generation? 14 empires abused, invaded victims, suffered a century or two, then roared in to cut down the giants. 150 nations now attack Russia's economy in active opposition to Putin's genocidal invasion of Ukraine. Toynbee's law of empire demise for superpower numbers 15 and 16. 1 million eggheads scrupulously report fatal military and environmental trends, then unscrupulously fail to hammer our necessary rescues that not one of all million narrow specialists will ever range across politics, corruption, and militarism and stark hyperspeed loss of steady rainfall to design and press implementation of destruction reversal, much less voice clarion calls to masses who must instantly become our humane, clean new leaders, firing the greedy, filthy players. I invite publishers to profit share, not gain exclusivity or prevent my self-publication of a very possibly popular audiobook. Some of you may go away standing on your academic expert protocols, but I suggest not without a thought or two, such as, Steve projects billions of deaths in as soon as a single decade and marshals major evidence that only anti-corruption and weapon-destroying law, plus giant new water source and CO2 scrubbing industry will save us from suffering unto extinction. Certainly not sparing our own executives, editors, and families. So if we even suspect that old Steve is dead on, then what's the big worry? Our academic rules or everybody's survival, including our own loved ones? This weirdo claims that our library of long-published and approved professional specialists are everyone myopically ignorant of humanity's impending, enormously visible total destruction. And he insists that general dozen-field worldwide focus is our only damn chance. Certainly we have the choice and power to bury the frenzied fumbler, but at whose peril, including our own, by sending him to our competitors? Starting around 2022, everybody who walks into any bookstore is reeling from scorching, burning, parching, murderous local to world news that they and their families too are trapped inside the failing world machine, wrecking weather, trashing giant and personal economies, and ending peace, water, and food supply all horrifyingly fast. Hell, my own Central Texas million stare in horror at our two-thirds empty reservoir. Now, spin each around to a shelf of 50 identical books. Only you can save the world and your family. Of course, no one else has. Would it surprise you an hour later to see Grandma get elbowed aside by a pop-eyed, fist-pumping 20-something grabbing the last one? This old man's world emergency time has come. Glom on. Join up. Take your small cut, and me too, 'cause I'm going bigger and cheaper. Today I tightened up my thinking on where we could get enough more fresh water to save most of us, though we'd be just as doomed without full irrigation of damn near every cultivated crop and natural forest on earth. I do remain convinced that storing maximum rain from roof and street gutters and positioning giant pipes below flood level of all rivers at all likely to overflow every few years for delivery to dying reservoirs could save billions. But steady rain ever diminishes, and most reservoirs are many hundreds of miles away from any possible, if rarely flooding, river. Never mind the doomed trickle that once gushed into that lake. Technology to deliver coastal hurricane floodwater far and wide must be considered also. But please match the total of these rain collection schemes with the entire world of forests, farms, and human habitations accelerating into ever more severe drought. What small percentage of full or even just survivable water availability could such rain gathering strategies achieve, while zero floods, even 1,000 miles away, might happen for many years? While most lakes, rivers, and regular rain itself steadily vanish. Uh-oh, we'd better rush over to Plan B, desalinization. Filtration and osmosis techniques have been developed for decades, achieving small results, giant waste disposal, and huge expense. So allow me to detail for the second time world salvation designed by Professor Tukor. Last summer, coral everywhere appeared doomed. No more survival in ocean water up to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Hell, 104-degree hot tub burned me. Meanwhile, coastal floods, however undependable for saving humanity, begin above ever hotter oceans, evaporating up to unprecedented cloud masses, newly named sky rivers, then flowing inland to dump weeks of floods upon limited areas. These occasional deluges ruin parched, non-absorbent farmland, and so far no one collects them for distant reservoir rescue. To supply these environmentally, terminally ill coastal and even central continent lands, the advanced ocean water resource expert researcher Professor Tukor has studied for years the deployment of giant but thin metal sheets offshore just above ever steamier oceans. Massive 100% freshwater humidity condenses onto all sides of the metal, shaped to drain every droplet into long troughs, directly entering shorebound pipes. He drafts blueprints of a half-dozen such complexes, fully watering each giant coastal city. Well over half of the world's 8 billion live coastal. Only one problem. Everywhere inland is uphill from sea level. So power pump only, with motors spinning blades inside every pipe. Intervals closer and higher horsepower for every little degree steeper. So how about gasoline, coal, or nuclear power? No, for many filthy, expensive reasons. Let's stick to the cheapest, greenest, limitlessly growing technologies long transforming electricity generation, wind and solar power. That coastal 5 billion will still die fast with their also well inland food crop sources without massive CO2 air scrub out. Not for another 1,000 years again watered enough from restored rain, lakes, and rivers. Then only if all forests were human irrigated that entire millennium. All people and lands so doomed must soon be supplied by ocean steam, condensed fresh water delivered everywhere. Power piped up to every dying forest, farm, lake, and community. So every nation's swords into plowshares treaty must build Tukor sheets off of beaches around every continent. Also yanking away tens of trillions of everyone's stolen tax murder money for 1 million miles of water pipes to everywhere I described, plus municipal treatment plants and water towers. Crash construction of wind turbines everywhere windy will require some grid expansion to power cloudy area water pipe motors. If you'll allow ignorant speculation before professional verification, why not install solar panels atop most pipe motors? Could not mere feet of direct electric wires eliminate most new grid need? Buy stock in solar panel, water pipe, electric water pump, wind turbine, and of course, Tukor desalination ocean panel companies.